Hello, it's Tuesday, and we're going to go over the week in true crime. You'll be a little patient with me tonight. I'm feeling just a little bit not 100%. Must be fighting something off. But, hello. Hey, Rekka, thanks for the ordering. I could really use it tonight. Well, we're going to start with, well, let's just jump right into it. I did speak last week on these gentlemen. Well, let us just do it one more time. In regards to Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, they were celebrating last week. They were celebrating really big, thinking that Andrew was off of house arrest and that everything was just going to get tossed. They were talking about the charges being dismissed and that everything was thrown back and the evidence was all fake and yada yada. A lot of misrepresenting what was actually done. Last week, I gave links to the Romanian court and the actual judgments that happened. And even after that, it got a little bit more exciting because 2 days after the actual house arrest was lifted, well, during those 2 days, DCOT sent an appeal to the judges, and the judges reinstated the house arrest with no ability to appeal from Andrew Tate for 30 days. So he's back on house arrest with review every 30 days like he was before. And they wasted a lot of money on party favors and champagne because everything is still moving forward. Now, one thing I want to make really clear is that when they say that the case was tossed back to the prosecutors or dismissed, it was actually given back to the prosecutors to amend because they did find during their judicial review some discrepancies or lack of actual firm enough documentation of certain elements of the charges. However, none of that had to do with the charges against Andrew Tate. Yeah, you heard correctly. None of the contested or additional information necessary or clarification necessary has much to do with Andrew Tate and very little to do with Tristan. It actually all revolves against the charges for trafficking and assisting in the sex trafficking of the women and undue force in regards to Luana Radu and Georgiana Nega. They are Romanian citizens, yes, and one of them was a former police officer, or in they are being accused of facilitating the alleged trafficking and exploitation of these women. And as Romanian citizens, the judicial review, it is their job to make sure that the charges are properly executed against them. Their main concern was that individual victims were not identified per defendant, meaning per Luana Radu or per Georgiana Nagel, exactly what each one of them had done to each victim, and the amount of money that was actually said to be extorted or they had earned that should have been claimed in the Romanian system for tax purposes and etc. Exactly what charges and positions and everything would actually be against them in particular. This is going to be really important going forward with the second set of charges. This is going to be good for the prosecution to clear up if they intend on putting any of that on Georgiana and Luana. They're going to need exact amounts of money and exact victims' names and exact incidences. Now, they did have one or two of the incidents listed, but they also had generalized a lot of it in the previous documentation. There is a lot of text messages back and forth, a lot of coercion back and forth that we could see in the text messages. But what the court is actually asking the prosecutors to do is to streamline that per each defendant. And basically, basically just clarify against the two women, Luana Radu and Georgiana Negal, those parts of the actual indictment in charges. And once they do that, it can go forward. Now they have several options. DCOT can just revamp the second set of charges to include the first set of charges in a clearer manner with Georgiana and Luana in it, or they could just revamp this one and go forward again. Remember, we still have the second set of charges is in judicial review now and moving forward, and has not actually passed the actual judicial review to go to trial. Now, what is interesting is in the first part of the first charges, it actually passed the first part of judicial review. After many appeals back and forth, it did pass the first part, but not the second. It was an appeal by the Tates that actually brought forward the additional review on the exact amount of money and per victim charges. And then instead of it actually going to Andrew and Tristan, they actually noted that, well, actually this does apply to Georgiana and Luana, and we do need this all clarified before this goes through. And because they're all indicted together, they can't do it piece and parcel. You know, they have to take it all as one. And so it either has to be redone, reaffirmed, redocumented, and sent back, and or it has to be reindicted in some manner, which is a much longer process. Either way, we're looking at a year or more again. And however, the celebrations in the Tate household were, well, exaggerated, to say the least. Back under house arrest, regardless of the reporting. Now, what I found really interesting is that on January 14th, when they said that they were reversing it and that he was free, every news organization was picking it up, and I could find articles. However, when DCOT put the appeal in and the judges went with it, the only court reporting it is Romania. Like, you actually have to go to Romania's site to find that, because no one was reporting on it, except, of course, on Twitter. We do have Murder by Crayons and Gadget and a few others who are actually picking up on these. Mercio Bordeaux is over there on Blue Sky, and he reported it also right from Romania, thankfully, because it comes right from the source. He's a journalist over there. He's not on Twitter anymore, but he's over on Blue Sky, and definitely it did get turned over. And if you question the news organizations, or you go to like Grok or ChatGPT, if you actually give them the date that you think you saw something, they'll change their tune and actually go to the Romanian report and actually say, oh yeah, it was reversed. But I found it fascinating that the media itself wasn't saying it got reported. They really wanted to just promote how great it was that he was free. And he's not, just to be clear. He's definitely not. Okay. Let me just, hello, everybody. Hello, Teacher Damien. Nice to see you. Yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of an update to answer your question there, Damien. And we will have a little bit on Diddy today. He was in the thumbnail. Hi, Grace. Welcome. And thank you, Grace. I'm going to put this to the device. Let's get that device. We are less than $100 towards our goal. We have less than $100 to go towards our goals. Let me word that properly. We have done really well. I want to thank everybody who contributed. I want to thank everybody who helped get the word out there. Thank you to Culture Cats for allowing us to promote it on the stream we did together, and for contributing his share of what YouTube deducts on all of that too. So the same thing that I did when you guys promote, if you say that you're donating $9.99, even though YouTube takes their share, I put from the channel, we put the other half in to make sure that that $9.99 goes right to the device, you know. So yeah, I'm very, very happy that hopefully we will get this done soon. We will, you know. Hello, dog. How are you? Hello, Wanda. How are you doing? I hope well. And thank you so much, Grace. I really appreciate the support. I'm so grateful that you're here as a mod also. And thank you so much for helping towards the device. This is going to be a good thing to start the year with. I love doing this. Hey, Shill, welcome. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. I have another gentleman I want to speak about. I put up a hearing for the ex-sheriff in Kentucky of Lecter County, or Shawn Mikey Stines. During that hearing, well, we have another special judge. We have Judge Coron. Okay, that's his picture there in the corner. That was the first bit of news, but basically something very interesting came up during the hearing, and that is the fact that the defense brought up the fact that during a conversation of the prosecution and the defense about competency, because of course, based on the type of crime that it was in the video we saw, the prior relationship of Judge Kevin Mullins, the deceased, and ex sheriff Shawn Stines, it seemed so bizarre that this happened. So, of course, everybody's thinking competency, right? We're going to have something about competency come up. And sure enough, it did. But it came up in a rather different way than usual. Although I kind of suspected that this was a way the defense was going to go. Basically, talking about criminal responsibility. And that is whether or not, at the time of the crime, the alleged perpetrator could be held criminally responsible for what happened. Did he have the capacity to understand was right or wrong? Was he in such a state that that was impossible to do? Did he commit the crime but yet not be held accountable for it? Well, there's no doubt he shot the gun, and the gun killed Judge Kevin Mullins. Okay, no doubt about that. He shot him. There's video evidence of that. He has pled not guilty, though, because they are going to put up a defense. And there's two ways that could go. Most of the time when we hear about criminal responsibility, we're thinking insanity plea, right? Well, the insanity plea just means he had a mental defect at the time, and that, well, he didn't know right from wrong, and he definitely should not be held accountable. And it would make him either acquitted or not able to do the sentence or the punishment due for the crime. And in Kentucky, they can do that. But criminal responsibility is a little different. Criminal responsibility would allow them to say there was like a temporary mental defect of some type, and that extenuating circumstances added to the situation to where he didn't see that what he was doing was wrong at the time. In layman's term, it's kind of like, did the victim deserve it? And it's a way for the jury to say, yeah, it's obvious that he killed him, but he shouldn't have to pay the penalty for it, which I find interesting, because how are we going to say that regardless of the emotional state that the sheriff was in? Obviously, something happened. Obviously, there's some extra strenuous circumstances. We don't have all the details yet. We know he was displaced from his home the night before. He knows he was in trial for something that had to do with Judge Kevin Mullins, and more information was coming out, and it looked like the judge was involved in some not so great stuff. He knows that people under him, and he, being Shawn Stines, knows that there were actually people that worked for him involved in this, and this is how he's getting named, that he should have done something about it, and his good name's getting besmirched, and his life is being torn apart here. So there's obviously a very stressful situation going on, and we can understand that he's not acting like himself. But how does that going to relate psychologically to the fact that this was a sheriff entrenched in law and order every day? How could he not understand that killing the judge, no matter what, is not the right thing to do? I mean, I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around it. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, I can understand them going there because is it not the defense's job to do the best that they can to get the best sentence, for the crime, and have him only be judged for what he actually did. So I understand why they're going for it, and there will be actually a hearing on that. Now, the prosecution had already wanted to do a competency to make sure that he could stand trial so that there was nothing to come up for an appeal, which is, prudent, I would say, at the least. But when they heard the words criminal responsibility, their hackles kind of went up a little bit. They said, that's not what we talked about. This is new to me, because that would mean that the judge could actually state that Shawn Stines is overcharged and they might have to go for manslaughter. Should the psychologist for both sides come back and say that he was altered in some way and there was not any premeditation, should he go for full murder? Was it not manslaughter? He was not in control of himself. The man died, but he did pull the trigger. There's no doubt about that. It's getting quite interesting. I'm very interested in seeing how they wrangle this back and forth in the documentation. It is kind of hard to get these actual briefs from Kentucky, but I'm working on it. I'm actually interested in the legal wrangling that's going back and forth and what these experts will say. Another interesting note was that the defense had hired a physician already to speak on criminal responsibility. Now, they kind of mentioned it as if there was only vague conversations going on, and it wasn't actually clear if they had done an examination of Shawn Stines yet and what their opinion was. Because when the prosecution pushed for a report saying, you can't have your expert come in while our expert is doing this, assessment, if you're not going to provide the report that your expert already did the assessment, like, no, no, no. And I understand that, but it wasn't clear at the time whether or not an assessment had already been done. But it seemed like the defense wanted their cake and eat it too. They just did not they just did not want the prosecution's expert. They wanted to be present for it with their expert there also to understand the whole process. And you just can't have it both ways. If you had an assessment and the prosecution wasn't there, you got to at least provide the report so that their expert isn't blindsided. And that's like fair back and forth. It goes both ways. But we'll see what the judge rules on that. He does want the competency hearing, but in regards to the experts being there and what happens, and what happens in regards to a report, the prosecution was asking if an report wasn't already prepared, that it be prepared based on an assessment that was done. But we never heard the defense say that an assessment was done. So I guess we're going to have to wait for the judge's ruling on that. And so we're waiting to see. Well, there. Well, welcome, everyone. And I'm going to look up. Thank you very much, Wanda. Oh, thank you very much, Wanda. Definitely going to put this towards a device fund too. And we thank you very much. And thank you again, Mousy. This also will go towards the defense one. I really appreciate the support, you guys. Thank you so much. Hello, let me be frank. Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us, Mousy, by the way. It's good to see you. Hello, Infinity. Welcome. Good to see you here. All right. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about that hearing? There is a video that I put up. It's in the Shawn Stines playlist. I do have to update the playlist in the description below, but I will be linking them all. That happened at the beginning of the week, Oh, here's another one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much there, Mouse. We're going to put that right in there too. We're going to get him back on the internet. Exactly. We all miss Charlie. Yes, we do. I do appreciate the support, guys. Thank you. Yes, Couch, I agree with you very much. Let me just find this, okay, because it was a Twitch comment. I got to go back up. Yep. It comes down to vigilante justice. Yes, it does. And that would be like quite interesting to see that if they could see on the video he's actually guilty of doing the crime. And then they say, yep, but, jury nullification. we don't think he should be penalized for it because the man deserved it. But we don't know what the judge did. Well, I don't know what to say about it, but it does appear that the judge did something because everyone admits that Shawn Mikey Stines, the accused in this case, does not was not acting himself. It's not something they would have expected him to do. The whole county is in shock. We've got special prosecutors, we've got special judges. The special prosecutor, Jackie Steele, okay, and then he's got his private defense attorneys. He's got Jim Cox, and he has the Bartleys. But we have to see. There also was talk of him claiming indigency, that because of the type of case that it is and the amount of money that it's going to take, that he is going to get some assistance from the state. But also the request for a bond hearing. It's going to be addressed again, even though Honorable Judge Julie Adams, also a special judge that was brought in to Lecter County for this, had denied bail at the arraignment. They The defense wants to request a bail bond hearing. In other words, both sides can just argue for the judge why he should have it or not have it. So those are coming up. We don't have dates for any of those yet. We're still waiting to hear from the new judge, Judge Cochran, Coron, not Cochran, Coron, who actually seemed to get everything, all his ducks in a row for this. He even went over discovery to make sure there weren't going to be a lot of issues. Discovery deadlines were 2 to 4 months. Thousands of pieces of discovery already, according to the prosecution and defense, that have to be reviewed. Mostly on that video. Thank you, dog, so much. Thank you so much for the encouragement. And we're definitely going to put this towards that device fund. And I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, Shill. I will check Kofi for that, and we'll put that towards it too. Thank you so much for the support. We really do appreciate it. Hello, Stephen. Good to see you. Welcome. Hey, Mippy. It's good to see you too. All right. So on that, I think if you don't have any more questions on Shawn Stines, I think I'll move on, because this is going to be a quick review tonight. And I think the next one you guys will be all right. The next one is short and sweet. Okay, Courtney Clenney had a hearing today. Courtney Clenney, the OnlyFans model, accused of throwing a knife at her boyfriend, Christian Somali. Okay, sorry, I'm a bit tongue-tied today. She actually had a hearing today, although we're not really sure what the results are. There was an order issued, and I'm waiting for the copy to come through. She does look very sad, this one. This is a new picture that I got. She does not look as well coiffed or as upbeat as she did in other hearings. I'm not sure if this was from today. It was from a recent article, But Courtney Clenney her defense team is fighting to hold back information that the prosecution received when they went through the laptop communications through the cloud in regards to her attorneys with her parents. And there's no attorney-client privilege there, although the defense is trying to say that the documents were listed as attorney privilege because they were discussing the case and that they shouldn't have this information. But we don't even know what the information they received was, but the prosecution is fighting to keep it in, and the defense is fighting to keep it out because of how it was received. The judge did concede that there was not attorney-client privilege there, although the defense in the last hearing did a long speech about, if I write confidential in the top and I'm an attorney, that should mean something to another attorney, especially the prosecution. Well, the judge, they didn't seem to be reacting too fondly either way to either argument by the defense or the prosecution. The prosecution was like, I'm sorry, it was like right there, and it is pertinent to the case, and you're not going to be able to get rid of it. But we'll see. And we'll see how it goes. Prosecution has tried to get the defense has tried to get prosecution removed from the case based on this whole thing with the laptop before, although the judge says although it got thrown out because it's just they can't even prove ownership or anything like that, and they had no business really. It was turned in appropriately, like trying to say that they were tampering with evidence. There is no actual proof of tampering of evidence, but in the meantime the prosecution got a lot of information, you know and the sharing of information has to go both ways. Okay, but the defense is saying it was all privileged because her parents pay some of her bills, etc. But no, that's not how attorney-client privilege works. The Clenneys were not the clients of Courtney Clenney's attorneys, so there is no attorney-client. If they were speaking on Courtney's behalf to them, to keep them updated on what was going on in the case, well, they're allowed to do that with her permission, but it doesn't make it privileged. It doesn't make that conversation between those parties privileged. In other words, Deborah or Kim Clenney, the parents, could have taken that information and done not that Courtney would be thrilled with it or the defense attorneys, but they could actually made a public statement about anything that they said. But that's not a violation of attorney-client privilege, So, yeah. Exactly, Mousy. It's got to go both ways. Yep, you got to share all the information both ways. And we've got a lot of that going on, like right now. Look, let me bring in. So if there's no questions on that, anyway, as soon as I find out exactly what the judge ordered in that hearing, because I just can't wait, because there's a motion to compel going on. There's an motion actually to keep the evidence out. And then there was an order. There was a report on the order of the judge had made previously. So the judge is definitely moving this one forward, and we're going to find out what's going on. It's Judge Laura Cruz, and we should hear shortly. But as soon as I have it, check the community tab. Otherwise, next week's update will definitely feature Courtney Clenney again. All right. The next one, and I know you're all just dying on this one. Let's talk a little bit about P. Diddy, because the defense has really brought together a new motion it's really kind of has me applauding on one hand and gobsmacked on the other. Well, basically it has to do with the videos that the prosecution says that they have in about P. Diddy's freak offs. Now, we're talking about the criminal case here. I do know that there was a new civil case filed on Monday, but I'm not really covering all of those. I will say only a little bit about that. It was apparently a minor at the age of 16. They does list Shawn Combs, all his businesses, in two John Does, saying that they either work with him or were associated with him. It was apparently the same types of charges about things going against their will and being exploited and yada, yada, yada. But the most interesting thing I want to mention is that these cases are all coming forward based on the law in New York that allowed old cases to come forward if they were based on gender or if they were like a hate crime against a specific area of gender or religion and things like that. And so because these are assault against women, these cases are coming forward, but the window for filing those cases is going to close on March 1st. And you're going to see a lot of these cases that are filed in New York, at least, the civil cases and all against Diddy. We're going to see them peter out. I don't know about other states. I remember that the attorney, Anthony Busby, had said that he would be filing these civil cases in individual states all over. So it'll depend on the legislation in those areas. But that loophole will be closing on March 1st. Not necessarily a loophole, but that legislative law that led through that these types of cases could go through will be closing on March 1st. So I would think that there would be a slowing down of a lot of the civil cases coming forward against Diddy. But back to the criminal case. Basically, the defense is picking up on the term freakouts and all the bad press that P. Diddy has received from the prosecution's first indictment forward, how they said about the videos, what we could see on them, talked about the baby oil, talked about like coercion and all of this and paid sex workers, and put a lot of information out there. Well, defense is filing a letter, in defense being Mark Agnifilo, the main lawyer here, for P. Diddy. We've seen him a lot in the press, and we've seen him at every court hearing. But basically, this filing was a complaint against this whole process because the 9 videos that the prosecution is basing a lot of these statements from in this case of victim 1, who is, speculatively being stated is more than likely Cassie Ventura, but we don't know for sure yet. Her name is being made. Okay, but basically, the prosecution hasn't said that it's her on there, but it says that she did contribute. She was part of all of these videos, and it is part of the complaint. So the defense has now picked up that baton and twisted it in their favor a little bit here, because this is what they are saying. If you're going to use these videos that you say depict what you say you depict, and you're putting it out there what it is in your allegations to us, but then you have them under seal that we're not allowed to examine them, only in camera we can go look at them, but we're not allowed to have copies of them. We're not allowed to have the copies to actually check on the dates, see who was in them, find out, when this happened, get our defense ready for them. That's unfair. That's point 1. Point number 2. Oh, and by the way, you say that you got them from your raid on the Diddler's property. Well, we say, no, you didn't. They actually came from victim 1's personal collection. She provided them because she had access to them, because she kept them. Ooh, oh, could that be true? Well, we won't know unless they open up the files, right? Well, the prosecution wants to keep everything sealed to protect the victims, because they are filing for the victims in a criminal case against Shawn Combs. They don't want their names out there. They don't want it harassed. They want to do it the best that they can to keep them protected. But by keeping them protected and keeping evidence under seal and not allowing the defense to have it, the defense is saying you are tying our hands and violating Shawn Combs' rights. He has a right to face his accusers. He has a right to examine all of the evidence that you have. And I found it quite interesting that they're actually saying that they're not even the tapes that he had. So they're pushing back on that. And they're pushing back really strong on the term freakouts. They're kind of owning it. And they're kind of calling the prosecution prudes, saying they're being puritanical and judgmental, and that it's actually insulting to think that victim number 1, who they are kind of insinuating is Cassie Ventura, was in a long-term relationship with Shawn Combs, and why wouldn't she? And why should she be judged for enjoying herself? That the reason you're hiding these videos from the public is because the people in them are enjoying themselves and not doing anything illegal. Everything was consensual. In that you're actually being prudish and judgmental by not thinking that these women and these participants were actually having a good time. I kid you not. It's exactly what it says. So it will be quite interesting, because in a way, yeah, I can understand the argument. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Like, it kind of made me tilt my head. I was like, what? You know? But, I'll tell you, it just gets crazier. Yep. Oh man. So if those videos get released, first I want to know, did they actually come from Diddy's stash? Or is this actual accusation against victim number one true? And here's the other thing. Even if on those videos they look like they are actually enjoying whatever is happening, that doesn't necessarily mean there was consent, and it doesn't necessarily mean they weren't altered, because we're still going to have the witnesses testify as to what made them participate. Were they coerced? Were they paid? Were they threatened? Were they drugged? Were they drunk? And we're going to have paid sex workers testify. We're going to have the victims testify. Um, so it's going to get really, really interesting. But remember, consent isn't the key issue here. RICO is. And it's the making of money and the harassment and strong arming that he did to get done what he needed to get done. That is the key point to the whole case. Yeah. Hi, Paula. Welcome. Mm, mm. Hi, Paula. I'm sorry to hear. I don't know what's going on, but I hope you're going to be okay. All right. Yeah, why is he still threatening through others? I'm sure he had a book on what to do. I mean, burn the pizza. But exactly. Well, you're talking about the phone calls that were recorded in the prison, and he's talking in code to his sons. Yep, I get it. I definitely, yep, yeah. Yes, Stephen. I just saw pictures in Florida of all the snow. It's insane. Like I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I've never seen so much snow in Florida when I saw. Mm. Okay, if there's not too many questions, I think we'll go on to the next one. Basically, we're waiting for the next hearings on Sean Diddy, and we're going to find out about all of this in regards to this new letter. But the other issues that are still out there, remember, there's still a motion to dismiss the whole case from the defense. There's still a motion for hearing on his alleged rights violations because of the prison the prison search that was done and evidence that was found that way. But basically now there is this big defense challenging the prosecution's characterization of victims versus willing participants. Um, that the portrayal of all of this is sexist and puritanical, and that it's like them just being prudish and judgmental, and that they're actually judging everybody involved in too harsh a light. That basically the defense is saying you can have an orgy and enjoy it, it's not illegal. Basically that's the stance that they're taking, that the freakouts were in no way illegal, and that nothing untoward happened, and that everybody that participated is happy about it. And I guess that's going to come out in the trial, because if there are participants of those freakouts who tell it differently, that's kind of going to take away from the defense's portrayal of it. However, if there aren't enough witnesses or credible statements to come out that say there was, then that's going to be a hit on the prosecution side. But either way, it's going to be like a badminton game up there. All right, so that's it. We talked about the video evidence. I can't wait to see what happens about that. But it is, I do, just me as a layperson, I do think that they should seal the videos, allow the defense to have copies of them, but say that they can't be released. I think because the prosecution's fear, the reason that they have them under camera only, that you can just view them, is because they are afraid that they will get leaked out by the defense in some way to enhance his defense, but to actually hurt the case and to terrorize witnesses and victims that are involved. And it's a valid reason. But the way around it is to allow them the copies and have the judge order them sealed, that they're not allowed to talk about them. That would be it. You're allowed to defend against them in court, but not in public. In other words, just seal it away from the public that way, and that would kind of like solve both issues for a little bit, temporarily, till we get to court. By the way, we're still heading towards May. We've got February 1st is an interesting date, because that's the day that the deadline for the prosecution to put out the letter of all the detail of the charges and what they have on him. And I know that the defense is waiting for that, And then by February 17th, we have to have all pretrial motions in to be dealt with. And that includes like the motion to dismiss, discovery, evidence, what comes in, what goes out, all of that. And then, towards March, then we go for April 1st through April 11th, I believe, we do jury questionnaires. And then we'll go forward for trial in May. Hopefully, if it stays on track, because it's a speedy one. All right, then. Hey, Jean. Hey, Mrs. Cassandra. I am so sorry to hear, Paula. Our deepest condolences from all of us. Oh. We're here if you need an ear. We're truly sorry. It's horrible to go through. I know. Mm. I agree, Mousy. He does actually seem to be a very, very bad man. And yes, Mrs. Cassandra, I did hear about the former Abercrombie CEO arrest, because in the bail hearing, they tried to use that 80-year-old gentleman's case to get Diddy out of jail, but it kind of doesn't resonate, since they were old charges. He'd actually not been active in the behavior anymore. He was not as much of a threat. There was no intimidation of witnesses or car bombs. So it was a little different. But yeah, I did hear about that. I did. Yeah. It's tied in. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, while you all are getting your gropes in from Jean, let's get on ready for Kohberger. Yes, this is the next one. Okay, now Kohberger's hearing's coming up in the next few days. In this one, well, we're going to be talking about the genealogy DNA information that was received again. And this has been going on since the beginning. Almost all of that is sealed. All of it. If you go to the Idaho site and you look up Kohberger, you will see more records sealed than any other case that I've ever seen. And it all has to do with the evidence in regards to the DNA. All of it. How it was discovered, what they did, their motions to, from, about it, picking it apart, what is done. We had a whole big hearing, when Judge had the case, and he, Judge Shawn actually had to go over all of this and try to decide if it was valid or not. Now we have Judge Stephen Hippler. And, well, we have a year to get this all straight. But currently, right now, the defense has changed their tune in regards to the sealing of the IgG information. Now they want it partially open, and they want a public hearing in regards to how it was used. They want it open all of a sudden. And I don't understand the strategy of that, why they wanted it sealed all along and now they want it open. I mean, I'm glad that it'll be open, because it is information that is truly prominent to the case. It is one of the key pieces of evidence. I mean, there was that spot of transfer on the sheath. that was left behind at the scene. And then there was a familiar match through the websites that do genealogy tracking and testing, you know. And here is where the defense is kind of going to run awry, because they're claiming it was a Fourth Amendment violation of Bryan Kohberger's right to privacy to test the DNA or to use the websites for genealogy. Well, number one, if you can claim a First Amendment right to privacy to evidence that's left behind on a crime scene, well, then we don't have a justice system. It's just all gone flushed down the toilet. Because no, dude, if you leave a fingerprint or a spot of blood or your personal belongings behind in a crime scene, well, that's evidence, and you've got no Fourth Amendment rights to any of that. We don't have to notify you if we pick something up off the floor where you stabbed somebody. Period. I mean, that's just like the simple way to say it, right? The more direct way to say it. Like, get out of here with that. Fourth Amendment right to evidence left behind at the scene of a crime. Good luck. Not going to happen. Now, in regards to these internet these websites where family members send their own DNA willingly to a website to be searched to find other people that match. Where does Bryan Kohberger, as a defendant, have a First Amendment right to privacy to whether he's related to somebody or not? His family members had every right to send that DNA in and get registered. And unless there was a violation to the website's protocol for the FBI to use it, there's no Fourth Amendment right here. Bryan Kohberger can't assert personal jurisdiction over other people's DNA and what they do with it. I mean, once I read it again, I was like, are they kidding? Like, how do you have Fourth Amendment privilege here? You don't. Okay. Now, that's just one part of it. They've also attacked the search warrant based on things that happened in Pennsylvania. And they say that the search warrant in Pennsylvania, that the police weren't withheld information from the judge that could have been pertinent. I mean, they are actually picking apart every word, every I, every cross T that you can think of in these search warrants, because they're trying to get everything they can thrown out. It's getting down to the wire. They know there's going to be a trial in January now. They were unable to get the charges dismissed. They're trying to get the evidence thrown out so that charges have to be dismissed. And they're really throwing everything they can at the judge. But Judge Hippler seems prepared for it. So I'm really looking forward to this next hearing. We will probably do it live. If we can't do it live, we're definitely going to do a recording of it with commentary. And I welcome everybody to get on the back of those videos for the hearings and give me your questions and your comments on it, because it really does help me moving forward in what part of this you're actually interested in and where to dive into to get you the best answers that I can, because there's so much going on. It seems that in many of the trials these days, DNA evidence, how it is acquired, what it means, what software is used, where they got it from, is becoming a key issue. That in, electronic device tracking, GPS systems, cell phone data. It seems that every case is revolved around this. In this one in particular, the Idaho 4, Bryan Kohberger being accused of these murders, all based on cell phone data, GPS, imagery that was tracked by his vehicle, a vehicle identification, cell phone data, and trace DNA. Okay, that's it. That's the case. And the trace DNA that links him is the strongest piece. And this is why the defense is going at this so hard. So this upcoming hearing is going to be very a linchpin in the whole case, is to see what goes forward. They're trying to get the whole case thrown for police impropriety, for law enforcement impropriety in how the search warrants, especially in Pennsylvania, were required, that the information given to the judge was not complete, and that the actual search warrant was too broad. They didn't list exactly what they were looking for. In a murder case with four, I don't think that's, I mean, I have seen search warrants say exactly what they're looking for and limiting the scope of things, but in a murder case, I don't see it limited that often. But it is a good try by the defense. I'm just not so sure that, Judge Stephen Hippler is going to go with it. But here's the thing, even if he allows it all in, I would bet that the defense is going to appeal those decisions because the longer that they delay and the more that they get out, the better their case coming forward in January. Well, we'll see. Hmm. But now they're also saying that there was prosecutorial misconduct in, you know, biased juries as far as the grand jury, that there was insufficient evidence and that they laid out a basically false case to the grand jury. That ought to be interesting because it did pass for indictment. You're challenging the whole system, and judges don't usually look too kindly on that, especially if there's no real evidence of those improprieties, but we'll see, you know. And so that's going to be quite interesting. Very, very interesting. Um, they still do, from the last readings that I did, as far as the alibi that Kohberger presented, based on the fact that he was out driving that night and he couldn't possibly have done the murders, that's actually the alibi, even though nobody saw him. They said, they assert that the mobile phone data will actually corroborate what they're saying about his whereabouts, and that there'll be enough there for reasonable doubt, that he was even anywhere near the crime scene. So I guess we'll see, you know. Oh, the other thing about the searches, they're actually complaining about how the searches were conducted in Pennsylvania. They're saying that the police did not properly announce themselves before entering the property, violating the knock and announce rules of the state in the normal serving of these warrants. We'll have to see where Judge Hippler goes on that. That can go either way, because it's a courtesy type ruling. I don't think it can get a whole case thrown out, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I've seen cases go forward. We just had Shawnee Crawl, where, they asked for a search warrant. They didn't wait to see whether it was going to get received or not. And then because it was a missing person, they actually opened up the trunk and found a body. And because that search warrant wasn't exactly because they actually asked for the search warrant, that all that evidence got thrown out. Because if they hadn't asked for the search warrant, then they probably could have went with the urgency of the fact that it was a missing person and they thought maybe she would, could be trapped in there. Well, if you applied for a search warrant, you kind of already assume like it's not that urgent, right? If you took the time to apply for the search warrant, so that whole thing got thrown out. And all the evidence with the body and the cell phone and everything that was in the trunk, which clearly would have indicated that Shawnee Crawl actually did the murder. It was great evidence against him. All of it got tossed out. But he was still convicted without that body, without anything. The prosecution still did a good job of convicting him of that crime. But, you know, the point in mentioning it is that one misstep in the process can get all the evidence thrown out. And it seems like the defense is spending a lot of time trying to find any misstep to get anything that they can in regards to this case thrown out in defense of Bryan Kohberger. I mean, I always said that his defense team was doing a really good job. Um, but I will say that in this case, I do have to praise the prosecution because way back when they discovered the IgG match, Mr. Thompson, Bill Thompson, already did a pushback against Fourth Amendment, stating exactly what I said. You can't have Fourth Amendment rights to privacy when you leave evidence behind on a crime scene. Like that just doesn't exist. And you can't assert your right to privacy against your own family members and other people in a genealogy website. And you can't say that we're invading your right to privacy when you're the prime suspect in a murder, that we're not allowed to look around and try to find out if you did it or not. It's unreasonable. I mean, that's a little unreasonable. Anyway, that is what I have on him. He being Bryan Kohberger for tonight. Uh, no, no, no. Hitler. Hippler. It's George Hitler. George Stephen Hitler. No, sorry there, Mouse. I didn't see that sooner. No, fourth. I said fourth. I thought I said fourth. I'm sorry if I said first. I said fourth. Yeah, I meant fourth. If I said first, that's just me misspeaking, Jean. Yes, Hitler, George Stephen Hitler. And it's a Fourth Amendment. It's the Fourth Amendment right to privacy, is what I keep referring to. Oh, Jean is correct. If I said first, I'm way off base. Well, I'm just, I am speaking a little not as clear as usual tonight, so I do apologize. I'm just not feeling 100%, but I wanted to get this update done. Yes, it's Hitler, Stephen. Stephen Hitler, Stephen. Yeah. Sorry about that, Mouse. I didn't want you to go like off on it. Yeah. Yeah, keep your DNA in and on your body. Yeah, I thought I said four. Thank you, Grace. I did. But I do understand why people are not hearing me because I am speaking a little muddled tonight. And it is my apologies also. So I don't blame you. I don't. So anyway, that is everything on Bryan Kohberger, unless you have questions. But we're going to have an update with the hearing soon on that before the end of the month. As a matter of fact, I think in 2 days. Okay. Let's see who that was the last one. So if you guys don't have questions, like I'm running away. And also, Stephen, it's nice to have you here. I hope that this being not one of my best, you will still come back. Maybe I am usually a little more energetic. But these were brief hearings. Tuesday nights, I do a recap of what's happened during the week. During the week, I do the hearings with commentary. I do recordings and I put them up, or I put up videos lately in regards to certain cases. I'm still working, guys, on the Paul Canero case. I'm making that video. I've got the narrative almost finished and everything. And I also thought I would do a brief one if you're interested on the evidence that they have so far in the Zachary Hughes case for the Rose Petal murders. I know that some of you were surprised when we talked about it, that they had actually that they had what they had found in the house, and that they had found the CP. But there's so much more that was found at the crime scene that was going on in the evidence that they have, including the correspondence between Zachary Hughes and John Mello that I remarked that some of you were surprised that it had been. Yeah. I hear you, Mousy. I think that's what's going on. I've got post stuff going on from the head cold. It's not, yeah. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. And we're glad to have you here. To good people. It's good to hear. Yes. It's so nice. I love to see how you all interact together here. But if you don't have any more questions, I think I'm going to call it a night and get some more rest and see you during the week. We should be back on Friday. It'll be a surprise what we do because we haven't decided yet. Then hopefully, because I did need to reschedule Sunday for Bear and B, hopefully we'll be back Sunday with that. But in the meantime, everybody, have a great week. I'm going to do my best to be, get all the rest and energy that I need up so I can handle the rest of the week. Mrs. Cassandra, I hope that the hubby feels better soon. Paula, our sympathies. If you need us, we're here. Never feel bad about saying what's going on. We're all here to support you. That goes for you too, Wanda. We all, Be yourselves. You know, we want to support you in what's going on. Absolutely. Never apologize for that. So everyone have a good night. Everybody feel better. If you're not feeling great, I hope you feel better. If anything, you know, distressing is going on, just know that we're all here to support you. And that we open our arms around you. And you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. On that, everybody, have a good night.